Welcome to Seeing with Your Soul, the podcast aimed to inspire you to find your voice and become the best, truest, and most authentic version of yourself. Spiritually intimate, soul-to-soul conversations, life-changing insights, and spiritual teaching and healing. Real, raw, unfiltered. Join your host, Tisha Michelle.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Seeing with Your Soul with me, your host, Tisha Michelle. So let's dive right into our gratitude. So for me in this present moment, I definitely have to say that I am very grateful for my clients. And I know I've expressed this gratitude before because without all of you guys, even if you never worked with me directly, just listening to my podcast, like it helps me, right? It gives me that space to share my gifts and my experiences. And, for that, I'm grateful. However, today I wanted to go a little bit deeper of why I'm expressing this gratitude for some of my clients. And the reason being is I don't mind swerving into another lane, right? I also don't mind staying in my lane, period, right? So a couple of my clients have been helping me get into another lane, a lane that's not familiar for me. And being someone of myself who, I like to be in control. I ain't going front. If you've been listening to me for a while, I've shared some of those things that I've been working on, over the past few years. But, just like I'm sure some of you guys feel when you get into a lane that's not really your lane, you have to kind of rely on other people, right? So it's cool. I'll listen to podcasts. I'm reading some books. I'm like ODing with the podcast now in this particular lane. So it's been really helpful and, just self-educating. So when I go and ask a question, it's like not from just the foundation because I already know the foundation through the podcast and through the books. But now I can ask a little bit more. So, having these like particular kinds being so happy and excited to help me with something, makes me feel good for many reasons. And like they said, they're like, man, you've helped me so much. Like, I'm just excited and happy that I can actually, help you do something. So that, I'm very appreciative of that because I still find it difficult at times to ask for help or to, just being able to just receive or someone just walking me through, something that they're very gifted and skilled at. And it is dope though. It's like, yo, this is what's up. I don't have to seek out, into the sense I actually have it in my community. And, I'm really grateful, I'm just grateful for them. And I can't wait to share with you guys, what I have going on. I'll be able to share one part of it the end of this month. So I don't know what that date looks like. So it might be a podcast episode that's the first week in December. And then I'll be able to share the rest of it early next year. Really don't want to put too much of a time frame on it because, I'm just co-creating with the universe. The universe might have its own little things. But I'll be able to share the first part soon. And then the next part, I'll probably be able to start sharing that around, I don't know, maybe February of next year. So I'm super excited, nervous, but a good nervous. And I don't know, I just can't wait to tell you guys about it. Like, this is going to be a whole episode about this shit. But don't worry, I will make sure when I'm telling my experience, I'm tying it into it can relate to something and help, you along in your life. So don't worry. All right. So now I've expressed my gratitude. Now it's your turn. Unless you're driving, don't do this. I want you to just go ahead and let's get grounded and centered and just go ahead and just close your eyes. Let's just take a load off. Like you've just been maybe stressed today, or maybe you're just starting your day and you just want to just disconnect from everything. So just relax yourself. Go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to take a nice deep breath and we're just going to breathe in through our nose. And we're just going to let it out our mouth. Allow yourself to feel some of this weight being lifted off of your shoulders. Maybe it's in your neck. Maybe you're having it on your chest. I don't know, wherever it is that you're feeling it, give it permission to just go, right? Just to release. We don't want to hold on to you anymore. So let's take another nice deep breath. And again, we're just going to breathe in through our nose. and out through our mouth. Yes, yes, yes. I know y'all feel good. For me, taking that deep breath in and out, like I'm feeling it in my lower back on the left side, which is always bothering me. And I still have not been able to get all the way down to the root of what all emotions and stories I am holding on into there. But at this point in my life, guys, that shit is old and I got to get it out. All right, let's do one more. Another nice deep breath and just again, breathe in through your nose and just let it out. Yes, 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 and yes. All right, what are you guys grateful for? What are you grateful for? Express that gratitude. You already know if you've been listening. You know, if you haven't been listening, I say the gratitude in your head. You can say it out loud. You can put me on pause and you can go and journal it if that's what you like. However you want to express it is perfectly fine, but just express that gratitude. And the more that we put out, the more that we get back. And then when we go deeper into expressing that gratitude, we really start to see the things that really are important. Right. So for me, like when I said being grateful for my clients and that they're helping me, you know, swerve into this lane, that's not my lane, but that shit about to be mine. Because I'm about to embody this shit. But yeah, so even though it's very uncomfortable for me, I'm super grateful that I have somebody, you know, that wants to pour into me and to help guide me and they want to see me succeed. You know what I mean? And I just think that that's just dope. So when we can look at things like that and we start that coming from that place of expressing the gratitude, you really start to see like, yo, this shit is all right. It's all right out here. Like I got a lot of things to be grateful for and I got a lot of things to be, you know, to show that I'm blessed. And also there's things that happen in your life that you get to see. It's just like, yo, that shit was a miracle, man. You know, or look how far you've grown in certain things. So, you know, I always encourage, of course, express the things that is what you're grateful for is what you're grateful for. I just like to encourage you to go deeper, you know, when you say like my health. And so even if you list those things, but you can go a little bit further and say why, you just start to remind yourself like, holy shit, I can do this. I can do this thing called life. Right. So I personally believe it's super important to, you know, express that, you know, that gratitude. All right. Well, happy new moon energy, y'all. So we have a new moon on November 4th. So I don't know when you're listening to it. So maybe we're not even in that energy when you're listening to it, but it don't matter. I'm still telling you about it. Hey, so the new moon represents like the start of a new lunar cycle. So the energy of this day is usually or commonly used to start new projects, right? You can start, you know, a business or start a project around your house, you know, start a blog, start your podcast and whatever, or start like a new habit. And it's almost like the universe opens up this like secret window. So even though the universe hears us and goes off of like our feelings and what we're putting out around this new moon, it just opens up this little thing and says, hey, I can hear you even more clearly now. What's up? What you want? Go ahead and tell me what your desires are. What you trying to do? So it's like tap into that energy right there. And then by being this is a new moon in Scorpio, like take some time and reflect on the past 2 weeks prior. Like, what did you learn? Like, what did you go through? And how can you then like integrate that learning or that lesson into the right now, whether you're setting goals or you're setting like intentions, right? Because this one is really about, you know, being, transformative, right? So for example, if you can see, you know, something's been the past 2 weeks, like this situations or things that are going on in your life and you see a pattern and you're just on like, man, I really need to slow down because I'm moving so fast with things that I'm kind of being careless and I'm actually causing a lot more stress and chaos in my life because I'm not slowing down. So when you start to see that pattern, how can you incorporate that now into like your intentions or what it is that you're starting? Maybe you're starting a new habit and maybe this new habit, you say, based off of what happened in these past 2 weeks, I really do need to slow down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is before I make a decision, I'm going to give myself 48 hours. I'm going to give myself 48 hours before I make these decisions. And if it is a decision that is dire need and I need to make it right now, but I don't feel comfortable doing this, then I'm just going to walk away from it. Right. So that's just an example. So like, look at this past 2 weeks and what's been going on with you. And then look at what, you know, you've learned or what you need to learn and then go ahead and incorporate it in this new beginning, this new start. right? So if you're someone that's listening and you're like, man, I've been wanting to start a podcast, start that shit now. I want you to pick up your damn phone and just record if you don't have the things that you need. Just create that energy that you're starting something, new, or that you want to put into something new. Or maybe you want to create a new habit. Maybe you want to create a ritual. Great time to do that, because that energy is just going to be just matched. So again, the universe is hearing us and responding, but it's just something about that time where it is that new moon, and we feel this energy before and we feel this energy, afterwards and stuff. So just the universe is, like I said, is saying like, yo, I had you before, but I got you. Have you ever talked to someone, they're like, no, seriously, I got you. You know how we emphasize and we say it twice and you're like, yo, I believe them actually because they just said that shit double. That's like the universe. It's like, yo, I already got you, but now I got you. So what you say you want? Because I'm really hearing you very clearly. So just a lot of dope energy really around. For me personally, this energy has been going on for a while. And I really feel like November is really about to like fucking pop, like pop. And it's crazy, but crazy in like this good sense where I used to just be like, yo, let me just buckle up and just buckle up and take this ride. I'm just at a point that I'm like, yo, I'm just so out there. Ain't no seatbelt. I ain't buckling up. I'm like, let's go. I'm embracing this, right? A lot of times when we're going through life and we have these changes or we're feeling these changes, we really just don't embrace it. We start to resist it. And then when we start to resist it, that's when the chaos and all the crazy shit happening because we're resisting versus embracing this change, right? So embrace the change, embrace the newness, embrace what you're learning, right? So, yeah, so I had a client and we had just started, I just started working with this particular client and she made a comment and she said something to the effect and, where she was like, I just feel ridiculous that I just keep dealing with this or this keeps just happening over and over. So I was like, I was explaining to her and I said, when we repeat a lesson over and over, that's because there's a belief that we believe about ourselves. Right. And she was like, I just don't understand. Like, what is this? So I was breaking it down to her and I want to break it down to you guys also, because I know she's not the only one that's feeling and thinking like that, because I've been there before as well. So when I was telling her, I said, we look at things from a logical standpoint and we want to analyze things, right? It's kind of what we were taught, right? So something happens and we're like, yo, this doesn't make any sense. Or you're like, oh, okay, I can see why that happened because of this, and this. And then when you're feeling a certain way, maybe, it's a breakup or something and or some type of loss. And now like you're freaked out, you just don't understand it. Right. So what I was saying to her was, I was like, you don't understand it because it doesn't make any logical sense because it goes past the surface. So when we look at something, so my real estate people, right? Y'all know how to analyze a deal, right? So this is coming. You're looking at the numbers. You're going and checking some comps. You're saying, okay, is this 70% of the ARV? Does this, sell here? What does this look like here? What is that? That's all. That's logical. And that's getting into it and being able to analyze that shit, right? But when it comes to like a certain way that we get triggered or we feel and we can't wrap our brains around it, like, yo, why am I tripping off of this one particular thing? It makes no sense. And it doesn't because it's not the surface. We have to go past the surface and we have to get to the root. So I said to her, when we grow up, we'd have this tendency to recreate the emotional environment from our earlier home life. So I said, tell me about your family, right? Like, how did your parents treat you? How did they discipline you? Were your parents together? Who was the disciplined one? Was it the mother? Was it the father? Was it just no one? You just got to run buck wild? Like, what does that look like? Because that's where we were being taught and that's what we know, right? So I was telling her, I said, I believe we choose our parents. And you don't have to agree to obviously anything that I say, but let me say, like, as far as my belief and the way that I see this in a sense. So just follow me, just listening. So I believe that we choose our parents, like each one of us, all of you that are listening, like we decided to incarnate at this exact time, the time that we were born. This day, if you were born in the 80s, 90s, or whatever, we chose this time. We said, all right, let's go. Let's rock out and let's go to Earth, right? Let's go to school. We gotta go to school, right? So we came here to like learn a lesson. And this lesson is to advance us on our spiritual or our growth, our, evolution, our pathway, right? So then we look for parents. So it's kind of think about it. You're just looking like, all right, so this is what I know I need to work on. So which parents is gonna best this? So it's like, okay, so now we're looking for the parents who will mirror the pattern or patterns that we are bringing into, that we are, bringing into work on in this lifetime. Well, I'm losing my words, right? So we're looking for those parents who are going to mirror the pattern or patterns, right, that we need to work on, right? So then, we come in here with these parents, right? And when we're looking and we're doing this work, which I was explaining to her, because when I was asking her these questions and she's like kind of like responding and a little bit hesitant, I said, none of this is to play the victim mode and to blame our parents, right? So our parents are also here on their own journey and their own things that they have to work on. And then you have to look at like, who raised them, who taught them. So they're literally doing the best that they can do, whatever that may mean, in a sense, because they're battling their own thing. So, sometimes when I'm working with people, they're kind of afraid to really talk about their thing because they feel guilty and they feel bad, right? So you might be someone who doesn't want to really talk about it or think about like your childhood because you're like, well, I had really good parents and it was this and it was that and this didn't really happen. So, and it's okay. We're not blaming them. We just want to get to the root of it, right? So we're not on the surface level. Let's kind of get to the root of it to see just where this belief is at, so we can validate this belief or we can invalidate that belief, right? So when you're giving this info, like about like with your parents, and you're like, oh yeah, this is what this is, and this is how this was, and all, you can start to paint like the picture in that sense, right? So we have these beliefs as kids, right? And then we create experiences to match our beliefs. Right? So if I believe, and this is what was taught to me from whoever and however, but it was instilled into me that you have to work hard for your money. Well, that is a belief that I have now embodied. I own this belief. And now I'm creating experiences to match, aka validate that belief. So now things that I'm going through in life, it's a struggle. It's hard. Damn, I got to go through all of this for $100. Damn, man. That's crazy. But I already have that core foundational belief that I have to work hard. If you've been listening to me, on here for a while, you would hear where I've shared the story. And if you're new, I'll share it now real quick with my dad. My dad was in my life for 2 years before he died, right? I guess there are two things that I remember and stood out the most. And I'm like 14. He said, my daughter doesn't have to ask anybody for shit. And I co-signed it. You damn right I don't. What's up? I can do this shit on my own, right? I can do it on my own. So that was my core belief from 14 years old. And I am now 41. And I still have a struggle with it. I'm way better, but I'm not completely there because it still makes me uncomfortable if I have to ask somebody for something. Lord knows you're not going to reject my ass. So that was my belief. So then I made created experiences to validate that belief. So here's these experiences that I created in my life is I don't need to ask anybody for anything. So I just made my life harder. My life was a lot harder than it needed to be because I did not want to ask anybody for anything because that was my belief. My dad said she ain't got to ask nobody for nothing. What's up? And then he fucking died 2 years later. Like, dude, really? Like, so I created those experiences and stuff from there, right? The second thing was he was like, you're just gonna, because I had a boyfriend, right, at the time, and he didn't like that I had a boyfriend. And he said, you're just gonna get pregnant at 16 and you're gonna drop out of school. Ding, 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 ding. That mother effer don't put that shit in my head. So on a serious note, so he said this. I mean, maybe he just had this, I don't know, maybe he was prophesizing, right? But yeah, he said, and that's what happened. I got pregnant at 16 and I also dropped out of school, right? So then when you are young and you don't have discernment, you're just looking at these different things and these things that was said, and then they just stay there and they are your beliefs. They are your beliefs and you're starting to create from there, right? So, I was explaining to her, I said, the past has no power over us unless you allow it to, because the true power is in the present moment, right? And we choose our thoughts, right? Now, it may repeat over and over and over and over. And we're like, yeah, but I'm not choosing for this to repeat over and over and over, right? But we are in charge of the original thought, right? We had that original thought that then created this repeat cycle, I guess partially like the loop I talk about, right? I'm not good enough. I don't do enough. I don't deserve it, right? So then these things just keep, going. So I said to her, I said, have you ever said this to yourself or heard someone say it? And I'm saying it, asking you guys as well, where you're like, everyone always does ... whatever that is. Or everyone's always criticizing me. Everybody that I get close with ends up using me, right? And if you've ever said something in that, replace it with it where it's like, everyone always does this to me, or this always happens to me, whatever that is, right? There's the victim mode, right? But there's a thought in you that attracted that behavior, right? So if you feel like everyone's just walking all over you, what is a thought? Like, what do you think about yourself? Where's that at, right? Where's that belief? What do you believe about yourself? I gave her an example of someone that I know. It's an older lady, and so I'm going to share this with you. This older lady, I'm not really sure exactly how old she is, but she was in a not so nice relationship, and her husband took a lot of advantage from her, took advantage of her, and a lot of manipulation, and made her, she went into debt, and just not so nice. So finally she has the guts and the courage to leave that relationship. And then she goes to stay with a friend. She's way, older in her age. And she goes and stays with her friend to recoup and get herself together. Well, this friend then decides to manipulate her, run her into debt, make her get out all these loans and stuff. And what ended up happening was the relationship that she had with her husband and she walked away from, she walked into another one, right? And then from there, she's like, shit, I can't do this. I'm in all this debt, gets herself out of debt, gets her into a great place. Well, then she gets with a coach, right? And this coach ends up doing the same thing, just like taking her for money, getting this stuff, right? So what really is happening in that situation is that there is that lesson. So remember I said, when we repeat lessons over and over, there's a belief that we believe about ourselves. So where is that belief that she believes about herself? So sometimes when you say, okay, I left this toxic relationship, that's great. I love it. That is amazing. But there's still more work to do. So when she left that toxic relationship, you have to actually now step it because you're on the outside of it. You're not in it no more. You already know it's hard to see the label when you're inside the jar, right? So now you're outside of that jar and you're looking, I got out, I left, but let me analyze what happened. How did I get here? How did I get to being with this person who's manipulating me and taking me for all this money, right? So you leave this relationship and then you go to this next relationship. Doesn't have to be the same type of relationship. A relationship is a relationship. And then it happens again. So in between that one and that two, did you work on yourself? This is where you get to know yourself and you get to take accountability and have that level of awareness. So with that level of awareness is to say, wow, the red flags were there, but I ignored them. And I ignored them because I didn't want to be alone. Wow, I stayed because I felt like I'd much rather do this than be by myself. So when you're leaving a situation, whether it's a job, people do this in a job thing. Like, I'm tired of this job. They need to pay me more money and I'm quitting. And then you go to another job and then the same shit happens. You never worked on what it is, right? We just go from one to the next, right? So for her, it was all the same. So she was repeating the same thing over and over. Well, what does she feel about herself? Does she not feel like she deserves happiness? Does she not feel like, she's worthy of something? Like, where is that? So like for you, if you find yourself repeating the same lessons over and over, what is that belief that you're believing about yourself? And then when we can get to the core of what that actual belief is, then we need to say, is that your belief or does that belief belong to someone else? Because if it belongs to someone else, give that shit back to them. And now come up with your own belief. Right? So what I was telling her is I said, we can't change the past. We just can't change the past. You've heard people say that, right? However, we can change our thoughts on it and not to continue to allow yourself to punish yourself for something that someone else may have done a long time ago. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. How could I have just let him do this or let her do this? man, I should have said this is so dumb. You're punishing yourself for something that happened a long time ago or fucking yesterday, whatever. If it's not today, if it's not this present moment, that shit's the past, right? So we can't change that, but we can change our thoughts on that, right? So when it comes to releasing the past, we got to be willing to forgive. You know, if there's a person, I forgive you for not being the way I wanted you to be. I forgive you and I set you free, right? Whether this is a mother, and you don't have to say to the actual person, this is just could be you journaling and saying, right? So we want to release ourselves from that, right? And, you know, repeating these lessons and these patterns and these stuff over and over and over again. We got to get back to the basics and to the foundation, right? Are you super hard on yourself and don't give yourself any grace or any compassion and punishing yourself? Your mom might have been the one that was a disciplinary, right? So how was it that your parents treated you, and how are you treating yourself and treating other people? Right. So again, you know, sometimes people feel like, well, my childhood was great. It was fine. I didn't have anything traumatic. So even working with this person, I said, what does trauma mean to you? So I'm asking you guys that too. What does trauma mean to you? Right. And one of the things for her was like her parents separated. And I said, okay, so you are a little girl, right? Or a little boy. Your parents are together. What do you know and what are we taught? The two most important people in our lives and that are here to love us and here to protect us is our mother and our father. Doesn't always end up happening that way, but this is the idea and this is the thought. This is what we are taught from whoever, right? Whether we see it on TV or just from our parents in this sense, right? So now our parents are together and we are living under the same roof. And they are together, and now you're 4 and you're 5 and you're 6 and you're 7, you're 8 and you're 9 and you're 10. And then all of a sudden you're 11. And your parents separate. They are no longer together and they are no longer in the same home. Now you might have to go and switch back and forth, right? So you can then come and say, well, no, I had it good. Both of my parents was there and stuff. No, what happened was a traumatic event. How can it not be a traumatic event when this is all you knew for all these years and now it's changed? Now, how you choose to process it at that age is definitely up to the individual person. But then we say, no, I wasn't abused. I wasn't like molested or raped, and I wasn't beat or anything like that. I had food. I didn't have to like struggle in that sense. Like, okay, you still could have suffered something that was traumatic. So then you start to base you start to have experiences based off of that experience, that story, which was in the past. And then it starts to mimic out in our relationships. Y'all feel me? So when I'm working with people, you know, on an individual level, we're always going to go back to there. We're always going to go to your childhood and that inner child, because I need to know, where was that little girl, that little boy wounded? And with this particular client, I asked her something she had told me, and I know so many people know each other, so I won't go into what that is, and y'all be trying to figure out who it is. But it was something that she had said. So then when I took her back to her childhood, and I asked her a particular question about her parents, and when she answered that, and I said, and in what age? And she said the age. And then she's like, wow. And I already got it. And she's like, wow. She's like, I never realized that at that age when that happened, that's when this shifted for me. Yeah. That's why we go back. Because there's things that just doesn't make any sense. So remember, you're trying to analyze this deal and you're trying to get all logical, but it's not on the surface. We got to go back. So when we go back there, just that connection right there is boom, that's awareness. And with awareness comes change, and with change comes growth. So that's huge for her. And she said that out of her own mouth. That's huge for her to be able to see and be able to connect it. Because when you become aware and you're able to connect it, you can change that. But if you are on a detour and you have no idea of anything, you're just going to be driving yourself crazy. Like, yo, I don't even understand. This is so stupid. Why can't I get over this? This is so dumb. What the hell is wrong with me? Da 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 da. That's nothing. You're just trying to make logical sense out of surface stuff. And no, we need to go back. We need to go back. So then I ended it with her talking about like loving and approving of yourself. One of my favorite affirmations is to say, I love and approve of myself exactly as I am. When I first was introduced to that and I was looking, I said, but I don't approve of it. I want to change some shit. So it made me feel very uncomfortable, right? And I was like, okay, but this is just jumping out at me. Let me just rock out with this, right? So then when I started to really like dig deeper within myself, I understood that, yes, I love and approve of myself exactly as I am. And because I do, these are the things that I want to change so I can grow. Like I want to release some weight, right? It's not because I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, you're disgusting, Tisha. Like, why did you let yourself? How did this happen? It's like, no, I love myself and I approve of myself exactly as I am. And because of that, I need to release some of this weight because I know that this is causing my back to hurt, right? Which then doesn't allow me to stand up for so long or whatever the case may be, right? Or just, having, having someone who, like, such as myself, having lupus and knowing that things can just get inflamed and all. I don't need no extra shit. I don't need no extra shit. But really what it boils down to is just me loving and approving of myself and creating a space of safety, creating a space of being able to trust myself and just creating this space that knowing that I deserve, whatever the hell I want. Like I deserve it, right? And not only do I deserve it, I'm so open to accepting it and allowing myself to get into this state of flow. So that's the same thing for you. It's loving and approving of yourself while you're creating this space of safety, right? We all need to feel safe, right? We all need to feel safe. And if you like that, far as a forgiveness, it's I forgive you for not being the way I wanted you to be. I forgive you and set you free. So the thing is like, I wish my mother would have done this. I wish my dad would have did this. I wish this person would have did that. We cannot change that. Right? We cannot change that. And so much in life, we seek to change other people and we don't think about changing ourselves. I have no control over changing of another person and what they do, but I do have the control of if I'm reacting or responding or what that may be. So I was telling my 16-year-old, she got in the car the other day. I took her to somewhere and she couldn't find like this store in the mall. She was bent out of shape. And I was like talking to one other child, who just had a friend that, died in a car accident. So I'm talking to her. This one's getting in here all bent out of shape of something that I personally don't feel like is important. But, if it's important to her, it's important to her. To me, it just wasn't. I don't know what to tell you. Ask somebody for help. Look at the sign, figure it out. So then she was talking to me and she was telling me how she just blows things so out of proportion. And she's like, it's because I just don't have any control. So, I got to go into teaching mode. And I said, the thing is that the things you are trying to control are out of your control because they're other people. She was like, yeah, like the other day I got upset because I didn't want to leave out when you left out. I didn't want to go out that early. I would have, but my friend wasn't going to be up that early. And I said, yeah, see, you're getting upset and trying to control something that you don't have any control of. You don't have control over my schedule. So I'm going to take you when I can fit it in between what I'm doing. Right? You also don't have control over when your friend gets up. And she's like, wow. And I said, yeah. I said, so to put yourself through that punishment is not you loving yourself. Because if you love yourself, you wouldn't be so hard and you wouldn't be getting upset and being in just a bad mood over something that you never had control over from the beginning. Right? So we don't have control over our past and those choices and decisions that people made, right? That they did. But we can change our thoughts on it and we can control that. And we can stop punishing ourselves for something that someone else did, right? So when we talk about that forgiveness and releasing the past, I'll be damned if I'm telling you to give someone a pass and pardon them for the shit that they did. No. That's not what it is. This forgiveness is to set yourself free. So you don't have, right now, it's like you could have the handcuffs on yourself, right? Like you'd say, if I'm looking at you, I'm like, yo, you put those handcuffs on. You tied yourself up. That person didn't come here and do this. You did. So allow yourself to forgive. So you can release that and move forward on with your life, right? And that forgiveness is not just for the other people, it's also for yourself. Because remember, we're repeating these things over and over because there's a belief that we believe about ourselves. to give yourself the grace, give yourself that compassion, and that love, and forgive yourself too. Forgive yourself as well. All right, guys. Thank you so much for continuing to rock out with me. I hope there was something that I said just could open you up a little bit more, allow a different perspective, allow you to analyze your own self, but not from a surface level, but maybe just to reflect and go a little bit deeper. All right. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Seeing with Your Soul. If something you heard resonated with you, feel free to rate, review, and share with others. If you are looking to go deeper, you can connect with Tisha Michelle on Instagram at Mindset Slayer or visit www.healingalignedglow.com.